Let me play a little bit of something here. See if you recognize this. Anybody heard this song?
Of course.
If you've heard this song, it might be because you bought the Black Keys Project, or it might be that you saw an advertisement for the Super Bowl, the NCAA basketball tournament, the Summer Olympics, multiple ESPN spots, theme song for NASCAR race day, an ad for Cadillac, Subaru, Nissan, Sony Ericsson, Victoria's Secret, Sales, American Express, or these films. It could be this song or others by the Black Keys. I should be accurate about that. The film, maybe you've seen the movie Battleship, School of Rock, The Campaign, Dark Shadows, Up in the Air, Limitless, Moneyball, The A-Team. Maybe you're a gamer and you've played the Major League Baseball game, the soccer game, FIFA, soccer, Need for Speed, Rock Band 3, NHL, Tony Hawk Ride, Grand Theft Auto, or NASCAR. The Black Keys are the most synced band, synchronized royalties, the most synced band in the history of Warner Music. If you have heard this song,
I see you standing there on that lawn, disguised to be store-bought tan, flip-flops and cut-off jeans.
If you've heard that song, then you are familiar with the artist that Carrie Underwood calls the new boss of country music. Charlie Cook calls him dangerous. He won last week the CMA Award for the Album of the Year, Mr. Eric Church. So this morning I want you to meet the manager of those two artists, as well as he also manages Sarah Watkins and producer Jay Joyce. Ladies and gentlemen, John Peets. Considering all we've been through and places we've met and done things, it's kind of a trip that we're sitting here, brother. How did you get to here, to this place? Where were you born? Give us a little brief John Peets history.
I was born in the swing state of Ohio, on a dirt road in the country, and probably like many of you, it was just music was really important to me, and I started engaging that idea by playing guitar as loud as I could in Ohio and just rock bands and things like that, and worked my way to Nashville, and I'm a dropout, I hate to say, but I did come to here
Why?
For a little bit.
Because you were interested in playing loud guitar. Why Nashville?
Yes, because I was afraid of New York and LA at that point. Really grew up small town, and just Nashville felt like something that I could navigate, I guess. And so came here and found out that I really sucked, actually, at guitar playing. And I think that that's a good thing for all of you guys to be here, because the one thing I realized was that coming into where the bar is high will really, it's a better place than to be cool in a smaller idea. It's just to throw yourself into where it's really going on and find, if music is important to you, which it was to me, just being open enough to find where you actually can contribute and participate in it, because the music part and what it meant to people's lives and things like that, which is what motivated me. And I didn't know where I was going to fit, and that was the only way I knew how to grab into it at first. But as I started,
just follow your passion.
Yeah, and I was the guy that was organizing the band. I knew where to be when, how, all that kind of stuff. So as I finally figured out what the music business was about, and experimented with some things, I found my place. So I think.
John, was that an aha thing, or did he just? Was he just like, man, I really dig doing this?
It wasn't an aha thing.
Okay.
probably like many of you, trying to take some classes, building fences, sweeping the floor at some studio or whatever, and just trying to do all kinds of stuff. And because I had played and I knew how to roll chords and tune guitars and do that, I ended up, going on the road, selling t-shirts, but helping the guitar player get his gear in place or whatever. And just kind of watched it all happen, and knowing why, interviews at 6:30 in the morning show is horrible for an artist, you know what I mean? Not that you don't have to do them, but it's hard, if you're out there playing and getting up and going and all that kind of stuff. So just getting a broad understanding allowed me to, I think, relate to artists and talk to them in a way that I understood what they were going through, and therefore could help sit back and make better decisions for them as they went through that experience.
What was the first, like what you call a real gig, or did you just kind of slowly morph into managing bands of friends and then on to other signed bands, or did you take a gig?
I ended up working in the basement of a management company here in town, because at that time there wasn't a lot of I misrepresented myself basically, and they had me in there counting t-shirts, and I said, well, we could I could come in here and count these t-shirts on a regular basis for you. I could build you a little program so that when we count the inventory, you could check it out, they would sign it out, and it would kind of keep track of what you have in there so you would know. He said, that'd be great. And I was like, I have no idea how to do that, but I will figure it out. So I got the FileMaker for Dummies book or something and started programming little simple databases that moved to like fan clubs, managing fan club ideas, inventory, and then started observing what these day-to-day managers in this company were doing, and they were tracking contracts in recipe boxes and all kinds of weird stuff, very handwritten. So each little thing I saw that seemed quantifiable, I would misrepresent myself and say, I'll build you something for that. And I started doing that, and then I got hired by this guy, and he said, you're just problem solve our organization. Just build little stuff, just do that, what you're doing.
You want to name the company?
Yes, that was Mike Robertson Management. I think he's still doing stuff, I'm not really sure. But it was on Music Row. And then in that, as I worked my way up, the first band that I signed was Nickel Creek, which is where Dan and I met, which is a bluegrass band, kind of in the amongst of Oh Brother Where Art Thou was coming out. And they were the young, kind of high, 16, 17 years old at that time. It ended up selling 1 million records in a very odd format, in a very odd way, and that kind of got me going.
Well, after working with you for a while, then Time Magazine called this band, I think it was the saviors of acoustic music. Was that the term they used? They were, if you're not familiar with Nickel Creek, check it out. Go retro and check out the band Nickel Creek. It'll blow your mind. The Time Magazine, a lot of national entertainment media called them the saviors of acoustic music and other grandiose terms, but it was justified. They were really unique and amazing.
Really good, and at a really interesting time. And a lot of that has to do, a lot of this stuff, which is cool about music, is it's like there's a lot of common sense, but there's no kind of formula. So you get in there with good music, and if the time is right, and for that band, they were young and super energetic in an old-time format that all of a sudden was like cool for a second. And everybody just jumped on it, and just sometimes timing is really, really helpful,
Well, timing is something you've got a great sense for, because I remember during my ASCAP years, once we started getting to know each other, I'd bring acts to you, and I want to bring like a couple of them that you turned down and nobody's heard of them since, so you obviously made the right call there, but they illustrate, because I want to get into your philosophy of management. There was one act that there was a wife and a husband, and they were connected. The guy was the nephew of a huge major country star. They were kind of like this was way before the Civil War. It's kind of like a country Civil War. They were really great music. You know, I both love the music. They're connected politically. The country superstar even had his own imprint on his own label that they had already signed to. You thought that was not going to work, turned it down. Another artist that, and of course, where are they? Obviously, you spotted some, and spotted a lack of something. There was another artist, Joanna, who had all the goods. Great music. In fact, she did a convo here, and she came. There was a contract you were negotiating with her, and it didn't happen with her because she wanted things done the Nashville way, and correct me if I'm mischaracterizing this, and you saw a different way to do things. So based on those two examples and just other things, how's your philosophy different from the normal Nashville manager? Is that fair?
Yes.
Clear?
Do it the wrong way. It would be the main takeaway. And what I mean by that is that if there is something happening, then it's kind of been done. So that's one, it's boring, and two, the chances of it working again is not very good. But beyond that, I think it is probably more of an A&R thing. It's an A&R thing first, before philosophy is overlaid on it. And what I mean by that is that when I interview an artist and considering them to do anything, work with them, the first thing is that do I believe that they would do anything else on this earth? Like that, I don't want to even believe that they would do that. So if I believe they're going to play on Friday and Saturday night at the local bar for 10 people every night, or they're going to be writing songs every night anyway, regardless of what success is, then that's interesting to me because we can redefine what success actually is. And so they can have very attainable goals. So you're saying you probably just don't want to wait tables and do your music. You want to be able to do your music. So the first goal would be to get you enough money to just continue to make music. And if you're lucky enough to make a record, the goal would be to be successful enough in marketing that record and selling that record that you get to make another. And those are incremental goals that are someone who's going to be doing music for a lifetime. And that's really important. And then number two, is even if they have that kind of drive and motivation, is what they are doing unique enough that it has its own thing that feels like if you want that, you're only going to get it from them. And if you can say, that's great, but I can identify 6 or 7 other people that are doing that, I don't like that position either. So it starts with a very unique artistry, I think, and someone who has the drive that is just in their DNA. They're put here to do it. And if those two things are there, then you have a place to start. And then from there, philosophically, it's all over the map. I mean, I've been criticized for some stances, and particularly in the new world, on one band doing it one way and doing it a different way with another band, and I say that's how it goes. These are individual decisions. They are philosophical, strategic decisions that are made in every category, and none of them should be looked at the same way. So that the Eric Church plan, the Black Keys plan, they're different. They may stem from the same kind of thinking, because I think it's reasonably the same way as far as I believe in protecting the cool. I don't believe in mass, taking opportunities that are just mass exposure. If the exposure is off your message, it's like, why am I going to put Eric Church on a morning show in front of flower pots? It's like, the rest of the guys can do that. And I'm heavily criticized for those kind of things because the traditional thinking is that's what you do. The more people that see you, that's good.
So eyeballs at all costs is the traditional thinking. The more eyeballs, the better. But what I remember, John, from the conversation in that first scenario I mentioned, the husband and wife duo was, again, they're politically connected all the way to the top. They're already on a major label. And as I recall, and again, correct me if I'm wrong, but I remember you saying that they don't need to start on a major label. That's a mistake to start. They're not ready for that. I believe you wanted to build them more grassroots, which is what you've done with both the Keys and with Eric, everybody you've worked with. So that seems to be foundational to your thinking is don't get ahead of the plan. Start early, build at grassroots, right?
Well, yes, and that's there's just no shortcuts. I mean, there's shortcuts, there's examples of shortcuts that work. I would question how long they work if you look at history, but there's really not, in my view, what we work with, there really isn't a way to do that. Because if you're working with something unique, it's probably going to be hard. If it's that, if you can see that straight path in, it probably means the reason you see that path is because it's already happening. So you go, you listen to that and go, yeah, that sounds like it should be on the radio. And it's like, well, you're kind of behind, and to what degree is radio actually, do you want that to be a part of it, and why, So, when it seems so direct like that, my usual reaction is, well, he's so far behind the curve, it's not that interesting,
Okay.
and it has a harder chance to succeed, I think.
So, let me say something, and you can neither confirm nor deny this, but it seems like, not to name names, but a more traditional manager anywhere, but especially in Nashville, would want to sign an act to a record deal as soon as possible, perhaps to commission some money or something like that, but maybe make a decision that is not in the best long-term interest of the act. Maybe. And your philosophy has always been, to me, has been think long-term, start where you need to start, build it inch by inch, club by club, where, like you said earlier, playing for 10 people, whatever, but playing, protect the cool, and it's really more about that than trying to get a big commission up front for you to manage.
Up front, yeah. Yes. I have a good reputation in that sense of
Yes,
I have set aside a lot of money at the beginning to do the right thing. Because
Set aside, you mean passed up on?
passed up on it, or
Yeah.
passed it to the artist so they can actually live, because
Yeah.
we are in it for arenas, I'm not in it to just play around down here. It's like we want to go big, or, why are we doing it? Because it is this job is not a job. This is a lifestyle. There's no doubt about it. It will permeate everything you're doing all the time. You're connected to them mentally, financially, all of that. You're in the band, but you're as close as it's going to be if you're a good manager, in my view. So you've got to just do the right thing.
The long term.
Long
is
term.
what I see from you. Well, and so, but on the other hand, I remember the second scenario I mentioned, I remember that breaking down because this artist was used to the Nashville way, which is a manager participates in all the income except publishing income. And if I'm not mistaken, this artist wanted to carve that out. And your thoughts, so here, I understand, I believe you, but it's not about the money. But that decision seemed to be about money. Why did it break down? You wanted to participate in all the income streams.
Right.
Why?
Right. This is going to be a long answer. There's a fundamental philosophical flaw, I think, particularly in this town, with the manager-artist relationship, and it's a tricky scenario. But I'm going to talk about country music for a second.
Okay.
But country music is a bit of a racket in the sense that there is radio, and there are buyers out there that look at the radio chart. Okay, so they're
Talent buyers, you mean?
talent buyers, concert buyers. Okay, so if you can sign a band who has one song, and that one song is getting into the top 40 on country, there are lots of people that will pay you $5,000, $7,500 to go play their fairs. And there's enough of those fairs to actually do a summer tour. Okay, that band, I would argue, can't make $300 at the exit. I mean, I don't think they could even sell very many hard tickets at all. Because a fair is a family idea. You're not paying for music, you're paying for the funnel cake or whatever. You walk in with your family, you go to the fair, you see the next guy with a hat on, that no one really cares about this guy. But they take the money. The artist takes the money, the manager takes the money, because when you carve out other areas of income, the manager is going to make his money through one thing, and that's touring. And if they're going to make their money through touring, they're going to make decisions like that. They're going to be short term, and the artist is going to go away. And it's just, I don't agree with it. I'm like, let's get together, participate in everything, and make the decisions properly. And that you can build it slower then, because you're true partners. And
So you're, on the surface, it may look like that was a disagreement over money, but it sounds like it really was a consistent decision with your philosophy of doing the overall best thing long term. That if you're, as a manager, you've got your realities and your overhead and you've got to eat. So if you know that you are all in with the artist, you can make the best decisions without worrying about where the money's coming from, because you're going for the greatest aggregate total of money, as opposed to just participating in this part over here that would cause you to weight your decisions for this part over here, right?
That's right.
Okay.
That's right.
Makes
and,
sense.
You know, and I would also say that the percentage of nothing is nothing. So it's like,
Yeah.
you also are, you have to be having success if this person is going to be paid in that category.
Yeah.
I mean, so,
Speaking of the exit in, you've got a country artist now that's the new boss of country music. So did you, besides not the tour date thing not being where you started, I mean the country fairs not being where you started, did you book him at the Grizzly Rose in Denver? Did you book him at a lot of country music clubs first off, or what was your strategy there?
well, some of it was deliberate, some of it was forced, which is always what's fun about this whole thing, is that something happens and then you have to play a whole other set of cards all of a sudden. And in Eric's case, he got on a very big country tour early, and we were thrown off that tour.
It's public. I think we can name names.
Yeah, it was Rascal Flatts tour. It was the biggest tour of. And let me give you the whole background so you guys kind of know. But this is, we got on that tour thinking that these are big arenas. These are 17 to 20,000 people a night. We're a little bit left with the music. Let's see how this kind of plays. And it didn't play at all, is the answer. It was a bad idea. It was too casual of a fan. It was very, very young, like kids young, and Eric's language and everything. It was just a bad and so, but we're going there, and there's stuff that happens on these tours. You get headliners have control of production. They have control of your sound levels. They have control of stuff, and we felt like that was affecting what we could do. And I watch these things in other areas like t-shirt sales and stuff. You can kind of tell, are you connecting with the crowd? Or are you not connecting with the crowd? To what degree that's happening? And so we started to push the idea of, play louder, they don't like that. Play a little over, they really don't like that. And so we were just kind of pushing the edges and trying to work them, pushing, and things kept getting worse on us. And Eric and I were both pretty ornery guys, and so we went into Madison Square Garden and we went way over. And we were immediately thrown off the tour. And we knew that, we knew what we were getting ourselves into. We didn't know completely, but we knew we were going to be in trouble, and it just was a crossroads moment. One of those moments where we're either going to be falling in with this pop country crowd and kind of play over, or we're going to make a stand and we're going to be, something's going to go down. How bad is it going to be? So we were thrown off, and
did you play a little louder than you had in previous gigs?
Way louder. Like, hey, I'm the sound guy. Hi.
That's what I was wondering if you were going to reveal. So you do some things behind the scenes. Because again, just emphasize the point, friends. When you are, as John said, when you're the opening act, the headliners, and this is not just the band they were working with, Rascal Flatts, all headliners, they limit how loud you can be, how long you can be, the number of lights that you get, in fear that you will overshadow them. So you kind of took care of that problem in the biggest media market in the world.
Right, biggest media market in the world, which was again the idea.
That was on purpose, yeah. Really?
And then I had held little rock clubs for the entire rest of the tour in case. So we were thrown off the tour, but we came out and said, well, we're coming to the city anyway, on the same day and the same night, and we're going to play anyway. Kind of in the, just being ornery, kind of, but in the way of philosophically that fit with Eric of like, we said we are coming, we do what we say. If there's 10 of you there, if there's 300 of you there, we are coming. We'll take your Rascal Flatts tickets. We'll play after the show. So we booked rock clubs all, at like 11 o'clock at night, so you could get out of that show, bring your ticket, get in free. And that was our position. and that was the Me and My Gang tour, so we did the Me and Myself tour.
And these clubs are not, these are rock clubs.
And these were rock clubs,
It's an important
serious
distinction.
rock clubs. And so when we did that, we started to define, that was the crossroads of like, okay, we're gonna be that guy. Like, we're that guy. So if we're that guy, then let's be that guy. So we you know, and it really fit him. We weren't manufacturing anything. We were trying to be true to the situations, and they change, you know, and make the best decisions we can for what, you know, we're boxers, you know. It's like, this is, we're trying to win, you know. We're not really trying to be everybody's friends. We're trying to win. We're trying to win with integrity. We're not trying to do it as a marketing stunt. We were saying, this is not working. Let's try to work it out. Nobody wants to work it out. We got to do something. We are losing hundreds of thousands of dollars, you know, because to go out on a tour like that, you got a bus, you got a band, you're traveling 500 miles between cities. Very expensive, and you're not getting paid anything, so you're losing a ton of money. If you're not being effective, it's really a bad business position to be in. So you have to do something. So we decided to take that route. But what happened out there is he had to go in these clubs and fight for it. I mean, these people were just at the bar drinking beer, and, you know, they didn't care anything about this guy coming in. And they played really loud and really hard, and he just went after those people, and he kind of developed the edge that you now kind of see. But we liked that idea, so and the things that were going on that we didn't know, that we should have known probably, which is like, this is the biggest artist in the format. It means a lot to country radio. It means a lot to CMT. I mean, you know, we were poking a big bear, and that wasn't cool, you know? Like, a lot of people were tied to this idea, so, you know, we weren't getting played on the radio, we weren't really welcome around a lot of places. So we were kind of banished for about 2 years to just continuing that rock club idea because we were troublemakers. And so, but what we did is we started to develop this audience that was male, first of all, and kind of rock leaning. And country radio was pointed at 35 to 55-year-old women, you know, really trying to do that soccer mom thing. Our lyrics weren't right, you know, but the guys, things were filled with guys, you know, so we were just in a whole different demographic, and that caused all kinds of other issues, but, you know, just here we are today, so eventually that base has kind of come over, and with Jason Aldean and some of these other guys that are kind of doing a little bit of a more guy kind of rock thing, it's kind of the thing.
Yeah, at the moment. And he had, what, 10 singles before he hit a number one? So a lot of,
Yeah.
it's a little before you got a number one. Won the, I think I mentioned earlier, CMA Award last week for Album of the Year. So this, again, comes from this place of being banished out into the desert and shunned and not playing by the rules and not wanting to become part of the family to King of the World at this moment.
Yeah, and then one of the other interesting things is before that number one happened, we were already putting arenas on sale, which is a really big, very counterintuitive point to be able to do that much business without. So if you do a metric where you look at his traditional exposure, you count not doing any of that morning TV, seeing where the singles got to and how many people actually heard the music via traditional exposure lanes, and look at the amount of tickets that are being sold, that is way out of skew. That's probably the most important part of it to me, is that all these traditional things via the business that's being done through out of t-shirts and tickets and real stuff is astounding. Like, it's connecting in a way different way, you know, and that was really cool.
That is cool. Black Keys, let's shift gears here. Hometown band, Akron, Toledo,
Akron.
And you're from Akron?
No,
No?
about 45 minutes from there.
Okay. So how'd you find it? Was it through somebody back home or what?
Australia.
What?
Australia. It was funny. Well, I knew the band, but an Australia promoter that I worked with Gillian Welch, who kind of knew what my thing was, said, you know, these guys, they don't have a manager. Their booking agent is kind of taking care of management decisions, and they feel like they're ready to kind of look around. And so, you know, would you want to be one of the guys that meets with them? And this was 2004, I guess. And I said, yeah, you know, I'm a fan. I'm from Ohio and all that kind of stuff. So I heard about it from Australia.
From an Australian promoter. that worked with another act that you managed at the time.
Right.
It's cool to me how networks work, you know, in the coolest way. So you saw him, and so your immediate thought was, okay, let me sign him to a big record deal at Atlantic Records, yeah?
No.
Really? I'm shocked.
Yeah.
So what'd you do? Where'd you start? What'd you do?
Well, they were on Fat Possum Records, which is in Mississippi, and it's really kind of two guys, you know, who have really good ears, but they don't have a lot of infrastructure. And they were out of that deal, so they said, what do we want to do? And at this point, the guys had sold maybe like 80,000 records or something, enough to where everyone was interested. That's still
So they were working, they were road dogging, right?
Yeah, they were touring and all that stuff. I think they could play to maybe, you know, 1,000, maybe 1,500 people in big markets like New York and Chicago.
Yeah.
The rest was kind of in the hundreds. But they, so we started to go around and take the meetings and hear what everyone had to say.
Meetings with whom?
Labels.
Okay.
And it was interesting because in my view, I just put like a kind of an aesthetic overlay over the band, and I would look at it and go, well, if this band is on Hollywood Records or something, it seems like they're going to have a single, and they will not do that. You know, it's like all the majors kind of felt that way. Lost Highway was a label then, who were very, very interested, and it felt like it would become a roots idea a little bit quickly, and so I called this label that I knew through Nickel Creek that wasn't on that label, but I had met the guys who was called None Such Records. And None Such is like had Wilco, but they also had the Point Vista Social Club, you know, they did all kinds of world music, they have turntables at their desks, you know.
Their tradition is a lot of folk music.
Very historical kind of label, but I really liked the guys, and I was like, you know, it's curious academically. I told the band that when I put that layer on top of you guys, I feel like people might think you read more than you do. You know?
Yeah.
Like it just felt, it's a very highbrow label. It's very critically, they're very cautious with what they do. It's always highly acclaimed. It doesn't always sell very much, but it's always very respected. And I liked that position because it felt like it would add some authenticity generally, that the band is not just copping old blues stuff, that there would be somehow a real legitimate line back to music that they were doing. It felt that way to me. So I called up this guy from None Such, and he said, and everybody was wanting the band, you know, getting bids and getting the dinner, you know, stacks of product and stuff just coming into the office, you know, all this crap that happens. And he's like, well, I don't know, I'd have to go see him. You know, I was like, this is the right answer. You know, this is a guy that's not saying, this is a band that can sell some records, a really tiny label, we know we can make some money. He was saying, I don't know, may or may not be right for us, which was the great first step. And so, anyway, we ended up doing that deal. And I think probably the most proud I am of that scenario is that really was, it ended up being the way Warner Brothers wanted to build their company and really hadn't been able to do it, where they owned None Such, but None Such was out here in New York on an island and they were in LA. And the disconnection of the staffs, you know, they always wanted to, how do we bridge these companies together? How do we get companies working together? And we were able to do that. The band was just so cool that as soon as we got that signed and I went to LA to kind of do my thing through the label, I got in with the college staff. And the college staff was, please let us work this record. Please let us talk to college radio. Let us be on the team. So it started way down with kids, really, at Warner. And then as the band went through their artistic evolution and got their confidence up to kind of allow some broadening of what they do, which took, you know, 3 or 4 albums, depending on how you look at it. More and more people from the mother company became interested and involved, and we were able to plug in the radio staff to the degree that ended up being, you know, on Brothers record that Tighten Up was, I think, a 15-week #1 at Alternative. You know, it was a big radio record. But that, you know, there is no promotion staff at None Such. There's no radio guys there at all. You know,
so you've got to build
there's
something
a bridging
upstream
of all that, yeah, which is like, again, a manager's job. You got to be able to kind of, how do you motivate people internally when they have a roster and it's not really their band, you know, but it kind of is because they own the company. And how do you make people feel like they have an ownership in it and have some pride in it?
What'd you do? So how do you make people feel that way? Just by shaking their
Give them
hand?
stuff.
Give them stuff?
No,
Okay.
I think it's having a really great artist.
Yeah.
Honestly, I mean, I think I'm reasonable at that, but I think that just the Black Keys are cool. That's
Yeah.
the thing. And if you are representing music that make people feel cool and feel like they have a leg up on where things are going, there's a lot of pride in that. And if you can let them kind of have it and get your ego out of the way, you're good.
Yeah, ground up, interesting marketing things, surprises. Tell us about how you launched El Camino. I believe it has something to do with the Cleveland Plain Dealer.
Oh, that was funny. Yeah, that was fun.
This is
That
El
was,
Camino, the latest record.
That was, so when we, the Black Keys are marketed very unconventionally. There's a lot of funny stuff if you've seen videos and stuff. It's like very funny in there. So when we did the record, we were looking for what the album art was going to be. We start there. We always let the art kind of drive what the website looks like and kind of inform the marketing plan. Because Patrick, the drummer in the Black Keys, his brother does all the artwork. He always has. So he's a really smart guy, a really cool guy. And so we start to talk about this, and we come up with this idea of a minivan for the cover of the record, even though the band wants to call it El Camino. And there's some thinking behind this in the sense that I like the minivan as a broken down idea of where we kind of were in America. It's kind of like America, there's minivans were hot and the economy was good, so this idea of this broken down minivan kind of said where we were, and I have kind of a high, philosophy of what music means, and that rock and roll, real rock and roll, represents something real, and not going on a talent show and going, oh God, you're the next great, thing, or I don't understand it. So this rock and roll meant roll up your sleeves, blue collar. These guys are coming out of Akron, 10 years. It's like this is what we need to do. Like if you want to succeed, like fucking work. So this beat up minivan kind of said what I wanted to say of like this is where we are, and rock and roll can play a role in getting it back together if we would understand what rock and roll actually is. So that's why there's a minivan on the cover, even though it says El Camino, which means the path in Spanish, which is what we were, So we wanted to get a little bit back to the roots. It is the first van that they toured in. It's not the actual van, but it's the same color and the same year and the same model. So that was the start of where we went. So we said, again, with this kind of like how do we do things differently? We said, why don't we start this campaign by a physical classified ad for an El Camino for sale in the Akron Beacon Journal, where they're from. One ad, for sale El Camino with a picture of that van, which will make no sense. And then we did the description of the van kind of like a record would be, or a turntable. It has some clicks and pops and the stylus and like all kinds of like music references. And then we had the 330, an Akron number, and we had Pat from the band kind of say, hey, thanks for calling about my El Camino, and it was kind of a little funny little thing, and that's what we did. That's how we let people know that the record was out, and that thing went crazy.
Who caught wind of that?
I don't
TV
remember.
media, any bigger newspapers?
Yeah, because we duplicated it. After we did that one, we duplicated it in the New York Times.
Okay.
There were bits of like 5 big media. But same thing, just classified section, not anything fancy, just actually
A real ad.
Our ad.
So virally it kind of went out?
Yeah, virally it went out, and then we built a fake bloopers like 80s car commercial with this guy from Breaking Bad, Bob Odenkirk, who kind of did, just did this. It's hilarious. You see it, but it's just trying to sell the van,
Yeah.
And then we built the first video. Was for Lonely Boy was supposed to be, Bob Odenkirk, the guy that did the bloopers thing, was actually the car salesman. So the band goes and buys this van from him after seeing the very ad that we kind of put out there virally in the video. Goes, buys the van. The cassettes don't work in the van, so they hate the van, all that kind of stuff. But coincidentally, and this is where you just got to be, like, again, kind of an intuitive feeler on this stuff and not too academic, is that this guy does this dance, you know what I mean? Like, this was an extra. I don't know if you know the video for Lonely Boy, but this guy dancing the whole time, one guy. And he's the extra. He's like $100. You know, he's the guy that's supposed to hand the guys the keys as they leave the motel room in the treatment. But we said, let's have all these guys sing the songs. That band hates to sing their songs. You know, they don't do that really in the videos very often. So we say, let's have this guy sing the song. And we don't know. He works for FedEx or something. You know, he's an extra, but he's in Hollywood, and he's taking acting classes. You know, and his acting coach said, if you ever get anything, you just prepare. You know what you're doing. So he knew the song. He killed it. You know, and we're like, well, that's the video. I mean, we've done this for $500.
Yeah.
And so, but just having the awareness of knowing you're spending all this money and you got all this stuff going on and everything's been filmed and all this stuff, but you say, still, that is better. It's better. You know, it's hard for everybody to swallow, but it's just like, that is more interesting to look at than everything we've done here. A lot of it is just like, you gotta kind of go with it. That campaign was fun to launch.
And we opened today by noting that they're the most synchronized band in Warner history. That comes again from you pushing it upstream to Warner Brothers, and somebody in the sync licensing department gets busy, or how can you end up in so many TV
Yeah, it's a
commercials?
little bit. I mean, it's such en masse, it's hard to put my finger on it.
Yeah.
I will say that it's not coming from publishers and labels putting out a compilation of here's what our priorities are.
Yeah.
It's a way more organic process. Music supervisors have got the clue that they actually can sell records, that they are supplementing radio, and they are important. They feel empowered in that position, and they're right, you know. But they want what we all want. It's a sense of discovery and ownership and being cool, you know. So you'd be shocked at the ones that come back and go, yeah, my nephew's cousin was playing this at Thanksgiving in the back room, and I didn't know what it was, so I put it in the movie, you know, because it's like they want to share that sense of discovery. And again, so if you have a cool band, they feel good about that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it wasn't validation. Yeah, you got to be careful on how you pitch that stuff and how you position it. And I think that it's a very difficult position for me. The biggest challenge is like how do you have multiple weak number ones in a row and still be cool? That's the hardest thing. I mean, I want to be Radiohead. You know, I just want to just be cool. You know, be in the vernacular that people go, that band is great. They didn't ever do anything that kind of disconnected us from where they came from. That's important, you know, to not get to look at us. You know, we don't want to do that. I don't want to be that person. That they don't. Eric doesn't. You know, they're all cut from that same cloth.
There's a ton more things I'd love to ask John, but when he came in, the first thing he said to me was, I want to know what they want to know. I want to know what their thoughts are. So that's all right. Let's open it up and get to hear from some of the kids. Who's got a question?
Yeah, John, first of all, I'd just like to thank you for coming in and speaking to us. I know you've got a work schedule. So you seem like somebody that can really identify an opportunity, like with those databases, and just build it up and help people out. And with artists, you say, you know, you look for that niche, that one thing that's so unique that's never been done before. But I guess my question is how do you see the opportunity? How do you know that it's going to succeed?
I don't know. and there's plenty of things that I have tried that haven't worked, you know, or worked, you know, marginally. That, you know, I thought would be you know, a reasonable idea. So you don't always know.
So why do you do it? Because it's music you love, the artist you love, and if it dies, it'll still have been fun.
Yeah, and you know what? I think if you can, I'll say one thing. Not everything works, but I feel like with our company and our people, if we decide to work on ours, they're always better off. It's just a matter of if you know about them or not. But I can look at everything I've done and say, we made you bigger than what it was. Like we don't. I can't point to what some people may look at it as a failure, but I would say, you know, we stayed true to who you were. We didn't make you into something that now you regret. Like I did this record and now I can't go back and make another record because I was this. You guys made me do all this stuff to be in the moment. It failed. Now everyone thinks I'm not a real artist anymore. Things like that, and that happens, you know, a lot. And we don't do that, and I can be proud about that. And I just feel like so. as many of those micro ideas may or may not work, I feel like that the basics and the fundamentals, we decide to work on it, we will help it, you know. Just how much is the question.
John, I want to thank you and Regina. Actually, you did an interview for me last semester, and she took care of all of it and made sure that she got the questions back to me. One of the questions I had, you didn't get to elaborate on too much, was how much influence do you have artistically on Eric Church and the Keys? So like when they come out with their new album, or I mean, because you're an artist too as well. I mean, how do you?
Well, yeah, that's interesting. I'll start by kind of saying that management thing. Like I don't know how far you guys get into what actually managers do or don't do, and one of the things I realized as I talked to some of you guys over the years, you know, is that there's no real the definition is to advise and counsel the artist, okay? And our managers are made up. Some of them are lawyers, some of them are publicists, some of them come from a record company. Their backgrounds are so different. Where their skill sets are is a wild guess, you know. And if you're an artist, I would recommend like really figuring out what that is. So, you know, through the years, I know what I do well and what I don't do well, and I am way more on the creative side than most. I mean, you know, all of Eric Church's photographs, I take all those photographs, you know, album packaging. I take a lot of the Black Keys photographs, do a lot of the video stuff behind the scenes myself. I used to do a lot less of that now than I used to.
Video editing.
But yeah, all that stuff, because it's just, I learned a long time ago, is like if someone comes in with video gear to your artist bus, man, everybody just sits different. It's like, they don't know you, man. You know, they don't know. So, but if I come in there and I have a camera or whatever, they feel they're in the circle of trust. You know, you can stuff can happen and things can be around. And you can be yourself, and I'm not going to let it hurt anything. But I also can pull out the real stuff. And you know, it's like that cover on Eric's record is just, I mean, we had a glass of wine and we were doing pictures for a different idea. And it just hit, you know, and I'm like, he's like, that's it, man, that's the cover. That says everything we want to say. Because of the relationship, too, you know. So I get involved heavily on that stuff, you know.
And there's other things that you just kind of give up and let somebody else take care of. Because it's not your thing.
Yeah.
But speak up, please.
How do you juggle multiple artists while staying so involved with them?
Yeah, that's a great question, and a big challenge for me, especially as you start to get stuff going. Like a lot of people want in, and that's a big challenge. I have the best people, and we treat this as a we. You know, I mean, I don't want my individual stuff. I gave up my ego thing a long time ago. I know I'm good at what I do, you know, and it's fine. But I want people that are better than me. I want people that will challenge me. And so, you know, we do it as a team. There's no other way to do it. You surround yourself with the best people. And we have a structure that some jobs are what I call vertical jobs and some are kind of horizontal jobs. So some people are clearinghouse for everything Black Keys, all little stuff. You know, one day-to-day guy that handles all the little stuff that goes on. And then we have like a touring position, and this guy builds the tours, manages the on sales, sets ticket prices for everyone.
For all the acts?
Yeah, because it makes more sense to me that he has information from, you know, WME and CAA and the agency group and all the different promoters in the country. So he kind of knows the landscape of, I'm not getting the best deal in this room. I just did this with this other guy. You know, that's not right. You know, so he has a vantage point that makes sense to go across the whole roster. So we kind of surround them. You know, for lack of a better, like I have my role, and you know, Gina has her role, and we all have a role that kind of, so as a group we manage them, you know. It all kind of ends with me, but that's why I need the best people.
One more.
You elaborated a little bit on the El Camino ad, and I'm an Akron native, so that was really big at the time that came out. But would you credit any like advertising on maybe other types of media, like the internet or television or even radio, to part of the success of the Black Keys?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think all of it plays a role. It's just, you know, you have to be careful of saying the vehicle and then the message, you know, because you know, a vehicle doesn't mean anything if you don't have the right, if you're not using it in the right way. And it's different for who you're talking about, you know. But I would say that you know, everything definitely contributed, you know. But in Black Keys case, we try to, as much as we can, just give it to the people. So rather than kind of advertising, it's more like, here's something for you guys to pass around. And by the nature of doing that, we're raising awareness to get a record company. Yeah.
Hey, it'd be awesome, obviously, if we could just go and go and go and have some tasty beverages and hang out. But out of respect for the next folks to use the room and you that have classes, we need to wrap it up. Thank you for coming, John.